Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Chandra.
And I'm Jyotsna Kumar. And on the show today, hundreds of Bangladeshis gathered to celebrate Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's resignation. Hasina's exit came after hundreds of people were killed in crackdown on demonstrations that began as protests against job quotas. What happens next? We'll break it down for you on the show.
Also on World DNA today, we shift focus and bring you the latest from the US. Kamala Harris is closing in on her vice presidential pick with an announcement expected within 24 hours. All this while she also makes a tour of battleground states, which are going to be key. Just 3 months out from the election scheduled for November later this year. We are going to be tracking that closely for you. Let's start with the headlines.
Bangladesh is now going to become the next Pakistan. She is 77 years old. This was going to be her last term. She was going to retire after this anyway.
Former Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's son speaks to WION, says people of Bangladesh are ungrateful, says Bangladesh will be the next Pakistan.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres urges calm in Bangladesh after the resignation and departure of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, highlights the need for a peaceful, orderly and democratic transition.
Former Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina meets India's NSA Ajit Doval after she lands at an airbase near Delhi, discusses the situation in her country. Indian Air Force is on alert in every eastern sector in view of the developments in the neighboring nation.
Sheikh Hasina is expected to leave for London, where she may seek political asylum. She is likely to stay in India until UK grants asylum.
India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar to make a statement in the Parliament on Bangladesh situation. He briefed Prime Minister Modi on the situation and met opposition leader Rahul Gandhi on Monday.
At least 5 US personnel were injured in an attack against a military base in Iraq, as West Asia braces for a possible new wave of attacks by Iran and its allies.
U.S. President Joe Biden and Jordan's King Abdullah discusses efforts to de-escalate tensions in West Asia after Iran vows to retaliate against Israel over the killing of Hamas leader in Tehran.
Secretary of State Anthony Blinken says the United States is working around the clock to prevent an escalation in West Asia, urges Israel and Hamas to break this cycle of violence through a ceasefire.
Kamala Harris closing in on her vice presidential pick with an announcement expected within 24 hours as she scrambles to introduce herself to the American public with a tour of battleground states just 3 months out from the elections.
From New York to London and Tokyo, equities get a major pummeling. Weak economic data and underwhelming corporate earnings offset positive market sentiment. Tech-heavy Nasdaq 100 sees its worst start to a month since 2008.
Mondo Duplantis breaks world record for the 9th time to win the gold medal at the Paris Olympics. The American-born Swede is the first man since 1956 to successfully defend a men's pole vault title. And we begin with our top story. A day after former Bangladesh Prime Minister fled her country and landed in India, Sheikh Hasina's son, Sajid Wazir, has expressed his concerns over the anarchy in the country.
Well, speaking to WION's principal diplomatic correspondent Siddhant Sibal, Wajid said Bangladesh will now become Pakistan. The comments come a day after India's neighborhood nation saw chaotic development and Hasina came to India. The Bangladesh army announced that an interim government will be formed. Hasina's son pointed out how the international community was busy criticizing his mother for what he called this and that. Hasina was Prime Minister of Bangladesh for 15 years, which saw stability in the country, making it one of the fastest growing economies in the region as well.
The developments in Bangladesh are terrible. I mean, if you look at it, it's anarchy. You've got you have no rule of law. You have mobs running the street, vandalizing homes, factories, and from what I've heard, now they're attacking the militants are attacking minorities and Hindu temples. So Bangladesh is actually in a state of anarchy. She's in good spirits, but she is very, very disheartened and very disappointed at the people of Bangladesh. After all she has done, after all the development, Bangladesh is now going to become the next Pakistan. No, absolutely not. She is 77 years old. This was going to be her last term. She was going to retire after this anyway. So they are now hunting our Awami League leaders. And the interim government doesn't even include the Awami League. So why would we bother?
And any plans for...
People have made their choice and they will get the leadership they deserve. My family has been through this 3 times. 3 coups. After this, we are done. We are tired of saving Bangladesh. Bangladesh can handle its own problem now. It's not our problem. I see that as the people of Bangladesh being very ungrateful. They're very, very ungrateful. And they deserve the leadership they get. It's their problem. Not mine anymore. Absolutely. Of course it is. Of course it is. Because I myself have helped modernize Bangladesh, digitize Bangladesh, bring it into the 21st century. I have worked so hard myself without any pay from the government of Bangladesh. I worked as an honorary advisor. I did not take a penny from the government of Bangladesh. And I built digital Bangladesh. My mother turned the country around from a poor country into a middle-income country. And in history books, Sheikh Hasina's term will always be remembered as the golden age of Bangladesh because it was as good as it's going to get. After this, it's all downhill. No, because the international community was busy criticizing my mother for this and that. So now enjoy. Watch the minorities getting killed. This is what you wanted. You didn't want Sheikh Hasina? Fine. This is what happens without Sheikh Hasina in Bangladesh. Well, that remains to be seen, but I doubt it. I mean, you look at it today. Even now, there's violence all over the country. What is the military doing? What is the interim government doing? Nothing. They have no power. No, she has not planned to go anywhere. She has made no decisions. She has retired. She will live out the rest of her time playing with her grandchildren. No, her grandchildren, my whole family, we have lived outside of Bangladesh for decades now. We are well settled. So she will probably come to my house, spend time with my daughter. She will go to my sister, spend time with her kids. She'll go to my aunt, spend time with the grandkids. That's what she will do. She will be a nice grandmother now. Yes, good luck.
The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has urged calm in the place.
The UN Secretary General,
the need.
They start.
Yeah, exactly. The Secretary General highlighted the need for peaceful, orderly, and democratic transition.
He highlighted the need for a peaceful, orderly and democratic transition. And of course, India's NSA, Ajit Doval, met Hasina after she lands at an airbase near Delhi and discussed situation in her country. Indian Air Force is on alert in every eastern sector in view of the developments in the neighbouring nation. India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, will make a statement in the Parliament on Bangladesh's situation today. On Monday, he briefed Prime Minister Modi on the situation, and India's opposition leader Rahul Gandhi met Jaishankar to take stock about the developing situation in India's neighbourhood.
Now, for more on this, we are being joined by Shamsher M. Chaudhry, who is a former diplomat and served as a Foreign Secretary of Ministry of Foreign Affairs from October 2001 to March 2005. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. Now, look, we saw the situation. Hasina is in India and there's still chaos. What is the ground situation like, first of all?
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, I would like to say that the reaction given by former Prime Minister's son, Joy, is understandable. I mean, of course, they're angry that her mother had to leave in such a situation. Now, when the question that I think one needs to ask is some need for self-introspection within the Awami League and the Sheikh Hasina family, is that if she has done everything so well, why the whole country turned against her? And why has even the international community has been critical of some of the things she has been doing, as Mr. Joy said himself. And if that is, you see, yes, there was development, undoubtedly very visible development in the country in many sectors, infrastructure, construction, road connection, all this is fine. What it is very, very important to remember, the development in the absence of accountability, in the absence of transparency, in the absence of total democracy is never, it doesn't last. I mean, we know the examples from the past in Chile, in Indonesia, in Philippines, where there were a lot of developments under very dictatorial governments, but they all had to leave, just like Sheikh Hasina had to do yesterday.
Mr. Chaudhry.
I agree that there was a total breakdown of law and order yesterday, but given the, also understand that over the last 2 weeks, police and the Chhatra League, which is the Awami League student wing, have been used mercilessly against the protesters. And this is against the protesters, not, what they're saying, people who are vandalized. I mean, yes, not for once, I support any form of vandalism, any form of breakdown of law and order. But the pent-up anger, I mean, unarmed student standing before the police during the protest, saying that I'm standing for my right, kill me, and the police shot him point blank. Police shot him point blank, not one round, 4 rounds of bullets were fired at him, and he collapsed. He's become a national hero, an iconic, a symbol of the resistance. Another very bright young student was just distributing water to the protesters, just distributing water. He's not a Jamaat, he's not an extremist, he's not a Shibir Kada. He is known from a family of, the new generation.
Mr. Chaudhry, I hear your point. I need to just also highlight. I understand.
No, listen.
Please. I like to highlight that a lot of vandalism was done. No, you have to hear this as well. That the destruction to public property, police stations, the Chief Justice residence, the museum, media houses, they were all vandalized, including Mujibur Rahman's statue. Now, he's the father of the nation for Bangladesh. He led it to freedom. Would you still consider all of them students? Was there any other indication of any external factors involved along with the protest, or would you still consider all of them just students?
I don't consider all of them to be students. There might have been other factors. There are other players also, and but it is not something that happened overnight. There's been growing frustration. People have been deprived from voting in the last 3 elections. There rigged votings in the last 3 elections, severely rigged voting. I took part in an election myself in January 2024, and I saw in my own eyes the extent of blind rigging. In 2018, the ballot box were stamped the night before the election, let alone the day of the election. So Bangladeshi people want democracy there, and I don't see the reason for India alerting its military on the Eastern Front. I mean, come on, Bangladesh cannot be a security threat to India. Bangladesh has never been a security threat to India.
Right. Also, how
India is a
does-
much stronger
right.
country. India is a democratic country.
I understand your point, but now what does the political situation look like right now that the army has interfered? What happens next?
And Sajib Wajid mentioned that Bangladesh will be the next Pakistan. So I just wanted to understand from you, what do you make of that statement?
I totally disagree with him. I totally disagree with him. I totally disagree with him. I think he's going flying off his handle. Look, the protesters were young generation. 25, 30-year-old, 20 years old, 6-year-old children were killed. So if somebody thinks that Bangladesh is going to be next Pakistan, I'm sorry, the complete misreading of the public mind here, which our media has been doing for the last decade or so. This generation, this is a generation that is 50 years after the birth of Bangladesh. They don't even know Pakistan well. They know Pakistan is a country that houses terrorists and all kinds of, extremists. We are a fundamentally non-communal country. We don't believe in religious fundamentalism. I'm very, very upset to hear that there has been attacks, some minority establishment and on this. And I hope the military has appealed, the political leadership has appealed, even the protesters have made a very strong appeal. The protesters have said we'll protect the minorities with our with our soul, with our heart. We will stand in front of anybody who's trying to harm the protesters. This is the temporary phase. Unfortunately, it's a temporary phase. I also agree that vandalizing the statue of Bangabandhu is certainly not something that I support, certainly not something that I want to see. It is not an upsetting of the dictatorship in North Korea. It is a democratic change, a very violent one. But there has been no deaths. In fact, there has been deaths on the other side. So the last 2 weeks, more than 300 protesters have been killed. You cannot ignore those realities. You cannot ignore those realities. The 300 government installations were damaged by the protesters. I don't support that. Now, is the value of the life of a young man less than the value of a metro rail station, which can be repaired? But the damage done to the mother who's lost her son can never be repaired. So, even yesterday, some very bright young girl came on television and said that I understand the Prime Minister's pain of losing her family in 1975. She lost her parents, she lost her brother, she lost the wives of her brothers and many others. But has she lost a son? These mothers have lost their sons, 300 of them. Lost their sons, they lost their children, they lost their future. They are poor income families. One of the victims was a sole earning member of the family. Another family has been deprived. Monetary compensation will never get her son back. It will give them perhaps some financial stability for a while. But the fact remains that the anger against the government was very, very strong. It has enjoyed wide public support, very deep public support. But it is important for Bangladesh to be stable, for Bangladesh to be most importantly democratic. Democracy is the only way we can restore stability in Bangladesh.
Mr. Chaudhary.
The interim government has not yet been formed.
Mr. Chaudhary, do you feel this will be an inclusive government without the Awami League? Given the circumstances that we've just seen yesterday, do you feel it will be an inclusive government?
We don't know what form of government it will be, because the political leadership that met the army chief yesterday, they said they will announce an interim government from them, but that has not yet happened, which means because these protesters are saying that it is we who started the protest against the government. The political parties came and joined later. So we will have to say in whatever interim government will be formed, number one. Number two, the president in his speech said that the parliament will be dissolved, but this is a fake parliament. It's a parliament elected through a rigged election. All 99% of the members of the parliament are Awami Leaguers. So If there's a new election to be held, it will be, we hope, they will set up an election mechanism on which the people have trust, in which the people have confidence. And the Awami League, of course, will be free to take part in that election. So Awami League should not worry about the interim government. They should look forward to the next election that's going to be held. How and when it will be held, I do not know. What will be the length of the interim government, I do not know. If the protesters want to have a say in, because they said no interim government that does not enjoy our input is acceptable to us. So they will have to have a say in the interim government, which means perhaps a prolonged interim government with the military backing it.
Mr. Chaudhary.
Now, President...
in regards to restraining law and order, the military has to play a very important role.
Now, Bangladeshi President, he has also called for the release of former Prime Minister Khalida Zia. Right, and now how then does this whole thing pan out politically? She's also been under...
Well, I think she is very unwell. As you know, she's suffering from a number of ailments. The Hasina government should have been good enough to let her go abroad for treatment, because the kind of illness she has, she cannot get at home. I mean, every Awami League, Tom, Dick and Harry was going out for treatment. And even if they sneezed twice a day, they would go to Singapore, they would go to Bangkok, they'd go to all countries for treatment. Why is this 77, 78-year-old lady who is very physically unable to become involved in any politics, why was she being denied medical treatment? I mean, and they're citing legal matters. Come on, laws are made for people, you know, and the right to medical treatment is a fundamental right of anybody. They could have set conditions and said that, okay, you go for medical treatment for 2 months, 3 months abroad, but you're not involved in any political activity, etc. Why deny a very, very sick person whose life may really be very short from now on? Why deny her the medical treatment?
I get your point.
The president has said she'll be released, and she'll probably is already home, or maybe will be home today or tomorrow.
Mr. Chaudhary, of course, you're there in Dhaka. Now, the visuals we've been seeing are from yesterday. What do the scenes look like there today? Has calm been restored across the nation? If you can give us a better understanding of the situation in Bangladesh, in Dhaka, where you're based.
Yes, it's 8 o'clock in the morning in Dhaka, and from my balcony, I can see all the roads and everything. I can see very normal traffic moving here in this part of the city. What will eventually turn out in the next few hours, one has to wait and see. Now, this vandalism, I don't support it. I hate it. I really hate it. I hate it from the depth of my heart. But if you remember when Ferdinand Marcos was overthrown in Philippines, 20, 30 years ago, the same kind of vandalism took place. People entered the presidential palace. They all took out Imelda Marcos's hundreds and pairs of shoes and all kinds of things. That anarchism that reaction is part of, becomes an immediate part of, dramatic overthrow of an unpopular government, unelected government. But I am confident that the people will have to go back to work, because of curfews and all kinds of things, police repression, people could not come out to work. Shops were closed down. Today, the shops will open. So normalcy will be restored. I'm confident normalcy will be restored. And the interim government set up with public consent will be there. And frankly, I don't think it will, an interim government will not consist of anybody from any political party. So why is how many grumbling about that? I don't know. There will be no political party representative with the interim government.
Mr. Chaudhary, thank you so much for sharing all your insights and giving us a better understanding of the situation in Bangladesh as of now. And, of course, you do not support any kind of vandalism. You've made that loud and clear. And a democratic process is what you're expecting in Bangladesh at the earliest, and that's how. And the Awami League will also have a chance to, to contest in that. Of course, we hear your points. Thank you so much for joining in. That was Shamsher Chaudhary, former diplomat and Foreign Secretary of Ministry of Foreign Affairs, joining us from Dhaka. Thank you so much for sharing all your insights, sir.
Thank you. My pleasure. Can you send me the link of this program so I can see it? Because we don't have WION in our television here.
We will.
And I miss seeing not seeing WION, because I like to watch WION, but I can't get it on.
Thank you so much, sir. We'd love to have you on the show again. Thank you so much for joining in. All right, it's time now for a quick break. Don't go anywhere. Lots more on the other side.
Now, coming up, we will talk about Kamala Harris, who is closing in on a vice presidential candidate. Who does she pick? We'll tell you on the show.
Anger, protests, death and curfews since Nigerians nationwide rallied for the first of the 10 planned days of rage over a deepening cost of living crisis. President Bola Tinubu appeals for protests to end after bloodshed. Kenya introduces slam dams to various regions in efforts to protect communities from floods. And meet wild, charming, smart courage, a male catwalk coach who is changing the stereotypes about fashion. Wild of Africa at these times on WION Wild is One.
The earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Violent crime rate in South Africa shoots up, igniting fear and concerns among the major cities of the country, even as authorities uncovered illegal military-style training camps with 95 Libyans in Mpumalanga. The Democratic Republic of Congo releases 420 prisoners from its largest and most overcrowded prison after images of dire conditions posted to social media by a recently freed journalist sparked widespread outcry. And Cape Town talent shines in graphic reboot of classic opera Wild of Africa at these times on WION.
The quest for an Olympic medal has begun. History is being made at the Paris Olympics.
Manu Bhaker has created history here in Chateau.
And the history makers are speaking exclusively to WION.
I'm living my dream, and it's not like it's going to end here.
The best in the world have descended upon Paris, defying gravity and setting new benchmarks. And we are there to cover it all.
The Olympic Games are the pinnacle of sport, and they demand sacrifices from both sportspersons and those covering it. I'm Digvijay Singhdeo, and I will be tracking the best in sport from here in Paris.
Can Team India reach a double-digit medal tally?
The Olympics, it's a sweet bread, but it comes with pressure, for sure.
Watch Gunning for Glory through the Paris Olympics at these times on WION.
Welcome back. You're watching WION The World is One, and this is World DNA with me, Jyotsna Kumar, and my colleague, Shivanjana. Let's start with the headlines first.
Bangladesh is now going to become the next Pakistan. She is 77 years old. This was going to be her last term. She was going to retire after this anyway.
Former Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's son speaks to WION, says the people of Bangladesh are ungrateful, says Bangladesh will be next Pakistan.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres urges calm in Bangladesh after the designation and departure of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, highlights the need for a peaceful, orderly and democratic transition.
Former Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina meets India's NSA Ajit Doval after she lands at an airbase near Delhi, discusses situation in her country. Indian Air Force is on alert in every eastern sector in view of the developments in the neighbouring nation.
Sheikh Hasina is expected to leave for London, where she may seek political asylum. She is likely to stay in India until UK grants asylum.
India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Shankar to make a statement in the Parliament on Bangladesh's situation. He briefed Prime Minister Modi on the situation and met opposition leader Rahul Gandhi on Monday.
At least 5 U.S. personnel were injured in an attack against a military base in Iraq as West Asia braces for a possible new wave of attacks by Iran and its allies.
US President Joe Biden and Jordan's King Abdullah discuss efforts to de-escalate tensions in West Asia after Iran vows to retaliate against Israel over the killing of a Hamas leader in Tehran.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken says the United States is working around the clock to prevent escalation in West Asia, urges Israel and Hamas to break the cycle of violence through a ceasefire.
Kamala Harris is closing in on her vice presidential pick with an announcement expected within 24 hours as she scrambles to introduce herself to the American public with a tour of battleground states just 3 months out from the election.
From New York to London and Tokyo, equities get compelling. Weak economic data and underwhelming corporate earnings offsets positive market sentiment. Tech-heavy Nasdaq 100 sees its worst start to a month since 2008.
Neeraj Chopra will kick off his Olympic title defense today. The 26-year-old will be showcasing his strength as he aims to qualify for the final in the men's javelin event. Kamala Harris is closing in on her vice presidential pick on Monday with an announcement expected within 24 hours.
Right. And this is 3 months from the elections. Harris is hot on the campaign trail and is set to embark on a tour of battleground states as well. Fresh from the winning enough delegate votes to secure the Democratic nomination, Harris will kick off her 5-day campaign run on Tuesday in Pennsylvania. The 59-year-old has broken fundraising records, attracted huge crowds, and dominated social media. And next on the agenda is a vice presidential pick. The question is, who will it be?
In the past, VP picks haven't really made a difference. I think only once it did, I think in the 60s. But really, I don't think that's very important. I think when you're voting for president, you're voting for the president, not the VP.
Harris has reportedly been interviewing Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Arizona Senator Mark Kelly as she shortlists her running mate. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker are also in the race.
51-year-old Shapiro is a rising star of the party with strong approval ratings in Pennsylvania. 19 electoral votes in Pennsylvania make it a must-win state for both Harris and Trump. If chosen, Shapiro would be the country's first Jewish vice president. Shapiro's strong support for Israel could alienate some progressive voters, though he could also appeal to moderate voters and defang Republican efforts to turn the Israel-Gaza war into a wedge issue for the Democrats.
I think Governor Shapiro is an excellent choice for Vice President Harris. I think he would do a lot of great things for the country and be able to tackle some hard issues. And it's a swing state. Like, that's an important thing as well.
Then let's look at 60-year-old Walz, who is a former member of the U.S. Army National Guard and a former teacher, who has raised his profile in recent weeks as an effective advocate for Harris. A former member of Congress from a Republican-leaning district, Walz has proven his appeal to rural white voters. He has also championed progressive policies as governor, such as free school meals and expanded paid worker leave. While Minnesota is a solidly Democratic state, it is close to Wisconsin and Michigan, two crucial battleground states.
Harris and her running mate will, after selection, campaign in 6 states: Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, North Carolina, Arizona, and Nevada. They will hold rallies in each location along the tour, which will include college campuses, historically black universities, union halls, and restaurants. For more on this, our correspondent Susan Tedani has sent us this report. Take a look.
The battle to become Vice President Kamala Harris's running mate is heating up, with Democrats divided over their preferred pick. Progressives are targeting Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, who's Jewish, over his stance regarding Israel and his handling of pro-Palestinian protesters. They're pushing for Minnesota Governor Tim Walz instead. The debate has turned ugly with name-calling, according to a report by Politico. The Harris campaign is trying to avoid a mistake with the stakes so high and such little time. Now, the intensity is reminiscent of a Democratic primary fight, with many Democrats seeing this essentially as their last chance to impact the ticket until 2028 or possibly even 2032. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
Tensions are soaring in West Asia after recent assassinations of Hamas and Hezbollah leaders. Diplomatic pressure has mounted to avert widespread conflict in the region.
Right. Now, this as Israel braces for Iran's retaliation. United States President Joe Biden has held crisis talks with his national security team. Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris were briefed on the threats posed by Iran and its proxies.
The White House said that they were also updated on U.S. military efforts to support Israel's defense. Remember, U.S. has lately sent extra warships and fighter jets to the region in support of Israel. The leaders discussed efforts to de-escalate tensions, particularly through the ceasefire hostage release deal currently on the table between Israel and Hamas.
As diplomatic talks continued, a fresh rocket attack on a military base in Iraq wounded several U.S. personnel. 2 Katyusha rockets were fired at the base. This is as the latest in a series of attacks targeting Ain al-Assad base in western Iraq.
The base hosts American troops as well as personnel from the U.S.-led coalition against the Islamic State group. Biden has said that the U.S. will respond in a manner and a place of its choosing.
But while Washington has vowed retaliation to any attack, Secretary of State Antony Blinken has said that the U.S. is working round the clock to prevent escalation. Blinken has urged Israel and Hamas to break the cycle of violence by reaching a ceasefire, saying that escalation would only lead to more conflict, more violence, more insecurity.
It's also critical that we break this cycle by reaching a ceasefire in Gaza. That in turn will unlock possibilities for more enduring calm, not only in Gaza itself, but in other areas where the conflict could spread. So for the United States, for many other countries, both in the region and beyond, this is our focus.
Now we look at the recovery in markets on Tuesday after $6.4 trillion were wiped out in a sell-off across markets from Tokyo to London to New York.
Rising early on Tuesday, Japanese stocks recovered part of the ground lost on Monday's worldwide sell-off. Now, Japan's Nikkei rose over 8% in early trading on Tuesday, following a 12.4% decline on Monday. While futures in Hong Kong indicated gains, Australian shares showed no change. The markets may finally be able to take a breather after a wild day on Monday, when the Wall Street's fear gauge hit a new high for data going back to 1990.
The S&P 500 pared some of its losses, but the index still closed 3% lower to marks. Its worst decline in over 2 years. The tech-heavy Nasdaq marked the worst opening since 2008. However, in early Tuesday trading, U.S. stock futures point to gains when trading starts later on Tuesday.
Speculation of an impending U.S. recession weighed on markets. The repricing was so severe that the swap market had predicted a 60% probability of an emergency rate cut by the Fed in the coming week. However, those chances faded overnight. Markets often tend to shed about 9 to 10% following a robust first half.
In commodities, following a 3-day dip, oil prices rose again as optimism in stock futures suggested recovery in U.S. and Japanese benchmarks. The shutdown of Libya's largest field redirected global attention to West Asia and boosted crude oil.
All right, next up, we look at the jump in U.S. recession risks, which caused a bloodbath in global markets.
This is until meeting on Wednesday last week. Expectations were for the U.S. Federal Reserve to lay the path for rate cuts in September. But data since then has reignited recession worries. Now the narrative on Fed rate cuts is not if and when. Now, but why, how much? Take a look at this report to understand more.
Monday saw an extension to the global stock market rout as investors fled to the safety of bonds. This is driven by fears that the Fed is lagging behind the curve in its policy support for the US economy's slowdown. Traders priced in additional interest rate hikes in Japan, sending the country's stock down violently. The Topix index marked its biggest 3-day drop since the 2011 Fukushima nuclear disaster, pushing the Japanese market into a bear market. A measure of Asian stocks fell to a 4-year low, reversing the gains made in 2024. The MSCI Asia Pacific Index entered a correction and wiped its gains for the year. The benchmark was down about 5% to mark its worst session since the early days of the pandemic in March 2020. This comes after US non-farm payrolls saw one of the worst prints since the pandemic. A carefully monitored recession signal was set off when the unemployment rate suddenly rose above the Fed's year-end prediction. Whenever the 3-month average of the unemployment rate rises by more than 0.5 percentage points over a 12-month period, we get a recession. This is based on the SARM rule. Everything was weak in the July jobs report. The more the US soft landing theory gets questioned, we could see further pullback in global stocks. Economists at Goldman Sachs raised the probability of a US recession in the next year to 25% from 15% penciled in previously. However, Goldman economists also said the risk of a recession is only limited. In September, November and December, Goldman anticipates a 25 basis point cut. Goldman's Fed projections are more conservative compared to Citigroup and JP Morgan Chase. In contrast, revised projections by JP Morgan and Citigroup show the Fed is likely to cut by 50 basis points in September. Whether these investment banks get it right or not, the market's plunge underscores the growing fear of recession. The sea of red in global markets also reflects that the Fed is already too late. So will we get a soft landing, or will the Fed's decision to leave rates on 2-decade highs result in a recession is to be seen. More importantly, investors will watch if the Fed's higher for longer rates rhetoric has done permanent damage to the economy. Business Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Let's now take a look at the developments from the world of technology. As per reported by a Chinese state-backed newspaper, China has launched the first batch of satellites for a mega constellation designed to rival Elon Musk's Starlink. Led by Shanghai Space Satellite Technology, also known as SSST, the launch is part of the association's 1,000 Sails Constellation Plan, also known as the G60 Starlink Plan. The launch marks an important step in Beijing's strategic goal of creating its own version of Starlink. China is aiming to provide a global network coverage by 2027 and deploy around 15,000 low Earth orbit satellites before 2030.
Elon Musk has reopened a legal battle against artificial intelligence development firm OpenAI and its CEO Sam Altman. Musk's complaint centers on his belief that OpenAI has prioritized profit and commercial gain over the public good. The lawsuit lodged in Northern California's district court claims that once OpenAI's generative AI technology began to flourish, Altman shifted focus to monetizing the innovation. Previously, in June, Musk had withdrawn a similar lawsuit against OpenAI and Altman, which criticized them for deviating from their initial mission of creating AI to benefit humanity. Musk's attorneys had requested the dismissal of the suit in a California state court without giving a specific reason.
In an association of startups, Alliance of Digital India Foundation has lodged a complaint with the Competition Commission of India, accusing Google of anti-competitive behavior in the online advertising sector. The association has highlighted several grievances, including restrictive ad policies that unfairly limit options for advertisers. Additionally, the association has criticized Google's ad ranking system that keeps advertisers uninformed about the specifics of the service they purchase. The foundation argued that Google's dominance in online platforms has led to practices that suppress competition and harm Indian businesses. The complaint also touched on Google's management of YouTube's digital real estate for advertisements.
The tech sector faced a severe wave of job cuts in July, with over 8,000 professionals laid off across 34 companies.
Absolutely. This brings the total number of layoffs for the year to over 124,000 from 384 companies worldwide. Key players in the industry have announced significant reductions in their workforces. Intel, for instance, is set to lay off over 15,000 employees, accounting for more than 15% of its staff as part of a $10 billion cost-saving initiative aimed at 2025. The company is grappling with lower than expected revenue growth and challenges in leveraging AI trends.
Similarly, Microsoft has reduced its workforce by about 1,000 employees in recent months, primarily affecting its mixed reality and Azure departments. Among the largest layoffs reported in July, UKG has announced the termination of approximately 2,200 employees, representing 14% of its entire workforce. The company is focusing on strategic growth areas to support its long-term objectives. Intuit also revealed plans to cut 1,800 jobs, marking the second largest layoff event in the tech sector for July.
Dyson, the British appliance manufacturer, is reducing its UK workforce by about 1,000 due to intense competition and rapid innovation. Additionally, Kaspersky is exiting the US market, resulting in the layoff of dozens of employees following a government ban on its software.
Now, the trend of job reductions extends beyond major corporations. Bengaluru-based startup Resha Mandi has laid off 80% of its staff after failing to secure Series B funding. Indian microblogging platform Koo has shut down completely, laying off all 200 of its employees following stalled acquisition talks. Unacademy has also restructured, resulting in 250 job cuts.
In the gaming sector, Bungie has announced a reduction of 220 jobs, with 155 employees being reassigned within Sony Interactive Entertainment. Finally, Humble Games, an indie publisher, has laid off its entire 36-member team after unsuccessful attempts to sell the company. Mondo Duplantis justified his top billing in athletics competition at the Paris Olympics by decimating the field to take the pole vault gold.
Well, the American-born Swede then proceeded to set a new world record to showcase the gulf in class between him and the rest. Duplantis had top billing on the night, and it was always going to be a battle for silver and bronze between the rest of the field. Duplantis started the competition with an easy clearance at 5.7 meters, and he then cleared 5.85 meters and then 5.95 meters with ease on his first attempt. His first attempt at 6 meters was a success, and that consigned Sam Kendricks of the United States to second place at 5.95 meters. Greece Emmanuel Karolis took bronze with a clearance of 5.9 meters. Duplantis set the bar at 6.1 meters and cleared with ease to obliterate Thiago Braz's Olympic record of 6.03 meters set in Rio in 2016.
He then called for the bar to be raised to a world record height of 6.25 meters and cleared on his third attempt, with Kendricks cheering him on as he set off down the runway. Duplantis is the first man since Bob Richards in 1956 to successfully defend a men's pole vault title. He has broken the world record for the 9th time in his career.
I knew that I pretty much had to hit it close to perfect. I mean, I at least needed to be in the right spot at takeoff to be able to use the pole and that, and jump the world record. I mean, you have to be pretty much perfect, and the rhythm on the run has to be right there. And so on the last one, we just tried to get all the details right.
American Valerie Allman emulated Duplantis by going back-to-back in the women's discus. She threw 69.5 meters on her fourth attempt, and now other athletes came within 2 meters of that mark. She is the third woman to defend the women's discus crown at an Olympic.
I think in discus, there's so few people that get to do it as a profession, and to do this full time, it is an honor. And I mean, it takes a lot of devotion too. But I think in my journey, it's kind of just been finding the right people that believed in me at the right time, that saw far more potential than I saw in myself, and kind of letting the story unfold in a way that I only could have dreamed of.
There was a huge upset in the women's 5,000 meters as World Championship bronze medalist Beatrice Chebet of Kenya ended Sifan Hassan's title defense. World champion Faith Kipyegon, who finished second in the race, was disqualified from the race for allegedly obstructing world record holder Gudaf Sigay. But the Kenyan silver medal was reinstated after an appeal from Kenyan authorities was successful. Sifan Hassan won the bronze with world record holder Gudaf Sigay a disappointing 8th. Hassan is also competing in the 10,000 meters and the marathon. And now time to shift our focus to the world of fashion. A few days after the opening ceremony of the Paris Olympics, the outfits worn by Celine Dion, Lady Gaga and Aya Nakamura and other clothes designed by Dior artistic director Maria Grazia Chiuri are on display at the Galerie Dior in Paris.
All of these creations have been made for this opening ceremony. They are unique creations and special haute couture creations, which means that they were made specifically for the people who performed at this opening ceremony. They're also unique because millions Billions of people were able to see these images just a few days ago.
Des millions, des milliards de personnes ont pu voir ces images. Cette robe, elle a été créée pour un moment.
This dress was created for a specific moment, an important moment, which was this opening ceremony of the Paris 2024 Olympic Games, for an extraordinary performance that closed the ceremony on the Eiffel Tower. So once again, an absolutely iconic place in Paris with a dress that is, I would say, just as iconic, that refers to the know-how of the House of Dior that has been perpetuated since 1946.
Renvoie au restitut. On a un savoir-faire ici qui est un savoir-faire de brut.
We're very lucky to be able to present this outfit in one of the most spectacular rooms in the Dior Gallery. As you can see, it's a dress that was worn by Axel Saint-Sorel on the roof of the Grand Palais, where she performed the Marseillaise at the opening ceremony of the Paris 2024 Olympic Games.
Toute une série de paillettes argentées et auxquelles on va ajouter
All right, viewers, that's a wrap on this edition of World DNA. Thank you so much.
Do stay tuned. More news and updates will follow. On the other side, you're watching WION World this month.
Know more, understand better, think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas.